Everyone, welcome back to my YouTube channel, Into the Light. Today I'm a little cozy, very cozy in this Christmas pajama look. I meant to film this video a little earlier, but the sun goes down so early in the winter, like as soon as it hits 4 o'clock, the sun's down. But still here today to film this video. So hey guys, so today we're going to be talking about personal boundaries and why they're important to have in relationships. So what is a boundary? First of all, so boundaries are essentially ways that you would like to be treated in a relationship. It could be a friendship or a romantic relationship, or it can be even with your families. With your family, you gotta set boundaries with them as well. Yeah, it's essential to have boundaries and to establish them to have healthy relationships, because if they're not there, if those basic guidelines are not there, then the other person doesn't know how to treat you, you don't know how to treat them. So boundaries are really essential to have, because if someone doesn't know what bugs you or what your pet peeves are, then there's just an assumption. And when you have assumptions, they're not based off of what the other person wants, but what you think that the other person wants. So this happens in relationships really often, where you can be arguing with your partner a whole lot, and your partner may feel as though, like, oh, why are you arguing with me about these things? Like, I don't understand it. And the reason why they don't understand is because they don't know what your boundaries are. So you may think a person is strange, the way that they behave towards you, but that's just because they have their own personal guidelines of how they like to do things or how they don't like to do things. And, there's different types of boundaries. There's like a physical boundary where if you're on the train, for example, and a stranger is standing way too close to you, you just gotta be like, man, I need some personal space, or you move over, or you find somewhere else to go. There's also personal boundaries, which is all about your emotions. So in a relationship, something that I have experienced is my boundaries not being respected. And they're not being respected because the other person didn't really understand why that I needed these boundaries to be respected, why I set them up. And that was not 100% a miscommunication. It was more like a misunderstanding. So it's like one of my personal boundaries could be, this is just an example, but one of my personal boundaries could be that I don't like, it makes me feel uncomfortable when you forget to fluff the pillows in the morning. Like, this is like totally like just an example. And the other person may be like, oh, that's weird. Why do you need the pillows to be fluffed in the morning? And, on the surface, it's really weird, but you don't know why that person has set up that boundary. So maybe I like to have my pillows fluffed because all my life, my mother would love that my pillows be fluffed every morning before I leave the house. And that was just like something, like an action that I always had. And say that if my pillows aren't fluffed in the morning, I get stressed out. And that may be because I was conditioned to always have my pillows fluffed. So when my pillows weren't fluffed, I would get stressed, you know? So that's basically something that could be of a boundary. And, some people don't fully understand why you have boundaries and why you want things certain ways, which is why you do have to communicate that with them. And not just communicate, but to make them understand. So you're going to have to be a little vulnerable if you want to talk about your boundaries and why you have them, because you need the other person to understand and respect them, right? So, often we assume that people will respect our boundaries, especially if we're in a relationship. Often we'll assume that they'll respect our boundaries because they kind of understand how we grew up. So there's like a little fluff. But unfortunately, that's not like always the case, because when you have two different people that come into a relationship, they have two different experiences, two different ways of doing things, two different ways of living. So, like for me, I know I would need to clean very frequently, like in my house. Like it was always a thing that the house just needed to be clean. So I'd always do dishes before I go to bed. I would always make sure that my bed's made. I will always make sure that, laundry's done, all of those types of things. But say I had a partner who at home, they could, leave dishes in the sink. They could leave their clothing away in like the corner or something instead of putting them in their drawer or their closet, because their parents may be the ones that takes care of all of that. So essentially when someone gets into a relationship, clean freak versus non-clean freak, they don't understand. They just feel like, oh, well, you're the clean one, so you should always be cleaning. You should always be doing the cleaning, right? Because you like to clean. You always clean. You know how to clean. But that's not very fair, because if you are with this person, you are living with this person, they would respect that, even though we both do things differently, we both grew up differently, that even though I'm more comfortable doing a lot of the cleaning, doesn't mean I have to do it all the time, and it's exhausting. And often, if the place isn't clean, then the other person is not respecting you, right? Because they know that this is a boundary of yours that needs to be kept. So, do you know your rights in a relationship? Do you know how you would like to be treated or respected? And these are things that need to be brought up, in a relationship. And I feel that, especially like for me, I'm young. I'm still in my 20s. I feel like most of the times we start relationships with people and we get really caught up in, the whole lovey-dovey stuff and all that. But if you want things to get serious, then these boundaries and everything need to be laid down, especially like in the beginning of the relationship. And it's okay if your boundaries change. It's okay if one day you don't like something and the other day that you do like something. If your partner just needs to know how to respect that. And with respecting that, you can have a healthy relationship because you understand each other's boundaries. There can be a lot of arguments, there can be a lot of confusion. You can be making yourself feel uncomfortable if the person won't respect your boundary. And they might feel like, oh, well, I rather do this thing with you because I feel like it's normal. I feel like this is what relationships should look like. And, you know, the relationships we see on TV, the relationships that our parents have, are not always going to be like the relationships we want for ourselves. when you get into a relationship with someone, you respect them by understanding what makes them comfortable, what they would like. And you do that as well, vice versa. It has to be reciprocated. There needs to be that mutual respect, that mutual recognition of what they like versus what you like. And if there is a clash, then there can be compromise, right? So if you feel like you're in a relationship and you're always kind of just doing things to make your partner happy, even though you don't really like it, even though you feel like it makes you uncomfortable, then that needs to be stopped. Because if they can't respect you and you aren't respecting yourself, you're putting your partner's needs over you, it's not healthy, because over time, they're going to overstep. If they can't respect you, they're definitely not going to be very attentive to your needs. Let's get away from romantic relationships. So let's talk a little bit about friends and having boundaries with friends. So for me, I'm not really antisocial. I don't know, I can go like days without talking to anyone and it'll be fine. I like spending time with myself, and that's totally fine. And there's importance in being able to be alone with yourself. I'll definitely probably do a video on that because I feel like it really helped me, especially being an empath. Like, I pick up on a lot of energies, and I get really exhausted when I talk to a whole bunch of people. So I could definitely go like 3 days without talking to people after like going to a social event or whatever. But yeah, so boundaries with a new friend. So say you have a new friend and they love to call you every single day. They like to FaceTime you. They like to have phone calls with you. And it's great in the beginning, but then it gets a little bit exhausting. And that's okay. You should be able to say, no, sorry, I can't talk right now. Sorry, I'm really busy. I'm doing something else. And if they don't respect that, if they can't take a no, then they're violating your boundaries. And that's a red flag there. Because you have different needs than they do. And maybe they're the type of friend that, in order for them to keep you around, in order for you guys to have a more balanced, loving relationship, then they want to be able to check up on you all the time and make sure that you're doing well. And that's okay. But there has to be a balance. There has to be a limit to how much they can call you. So you can set up a time like, hey, every Friday to Saturday, let's have a FaceTime call and just talk about our week. If you have a friend that comes over constantly and you're just like, when they leave, you're like, oh gosh, they're just always over here. I feel so drained. You can go to them and be like, hey, let's just hang out every Saturday. Or hey, let's just hang out every Sunday. Or let's just go out on the weekend. You don't have to have them in your space. You can go out to a restaurant, go out to the movies, whatever. And that way you can establish healthy boundaries and assert what you need. I've learned is also when people do cross your boundaries, make sure that you set up consequences and make sure that they know that there's consequences to it. Because, a lot of people, especially me, I don't like confrontation. And I don't like starting any war, being mean, but it's not being mean when your boundaries aren't being respected. So for me, I guess I'm still learning to be more assertive. I'm not going to say I lack assertiveness because I have it. I just don't use it all the time. Um, but yeah, whenever there's a risk to your boundaries being violated, don't feel bad to hurt someone's feelings because they don't know what you're going through. They don't know what makes you feel good, you know? Maybe one day you feel like, hey, I don't want to talk or I don't want you to come over because I'd rather have some me time. And it doesn't have to be like when you're upset. Maybe you could be happy too and just want to spend time to yourself, and that's okay. So don't put your feelings on the back burner for someone else. So we've been talking about boundaries. So how do you set them up? What are the methods to, having boundaries? So something you can do is sit down with yourself, get your notebook, and make a list. So list 5 things that make you uncomfortable that people do. Or you can list 5 things that you want people around you to stop doing. Should no longer say to you. So something could be like, maybe people say like, oh, you're so sensitive. I don't like hearing that. It makes it seem like being sensitive is a bad thing, which it's not. So just list down those things and then sit with it, look at it over and over. How do you feel about it? How will it make your life a lot easier? How would it make your heart feel a lot more safe, I guess? And then whoever is, making you feel uncomfortable or whoever is, draining your energy, you can be able to be like, hey, look, these are a few things that I don't like. And it doesn't just have to be things that they're saying to you or doing to you. Because, even though you want to kind of confront them with, your boundaries, you also don't want to make them feel like, whoa, like, why are you doing this and this? And why do you feel like I'm doing this and this? Because, when you go to people and talk to them about boundaries, you kind of got to be a little, you got to be like mature about it. And sometimes other people won't be mature about it. But you'll never really know. So you kind of want to set yourself up to, just be the bigger person. So tell them, like, I don't like when people do these things, and I don't like when people say these things about me, and it makes me uncomfortable when so-and-so happens. So instead of being like, you do this and you do this, kind of just be like, I don't like when people do this in general. And that way it seems like less of an attack and more of like something that you don't like. And then that will be limited throughout your relationship. Hopefully they understand. It's kind of different when it comes to like coworkers. Because coworkers, it's like, for me, when I work in a place and like if there's any drama or someone's trying to talk about someone else, I'll just be like, okay, I see what you're saying. I understand what you mean, whatever. Don't really put too much input in it because honestly, I'm here to work and make my money and go home. Most people that I work with, I have made a lot of good work friends that outside of work we hung out and everything, and that can happen, which is awesome. But for those coworkers that are really gossipy and just always kind of want to start something, just don't engage in that conversation. Kind of just back up, just nod and be like, Don't say anything at all. And they'll probably get it and they'll stop talking about whatever they're talking about. And then you can go on and finish working and get in your bag. So yeah, that's a little bit about personal boundaries. Hopefully this resonated with some of you guys, and hopefully you really like this little succulent here. I am obsessed with succulents. Hopefully you guys like this video. Please give me a thumbs up, subscribe, comment down below about what some of your personal boundaries are, because I want to know. What are your boundaries? Let me know. And I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye.